What is going on, everyone? It's Mr. Uzi here, and today we are taking a look at the 2200G and how capable of a CPU slash GPU this actually is. So as a little bit of background, for the past week I've been using the 2200G in place of my Ryzen 5 1600 for just about everything. I swapped the CPUs out. I've been using it for watching any movies, any intensive tasks, any work that I needed to do, and specifically gaming. Now, I also had to take out my GTX 970 and still try to play all the games that I normally do. Now, part of this is to test how capable of a CPU slash GPU the 2200G is, and is it even worth mentioning when you're thinking about building a new system. Now, it comes in at $100, and you'd be hard pressed to find any GPU CPU combo for $100, especially considering that it's a quad core and it's of the latest generation. Now, historically, integrated graphics on the CPU is nothing new. AMD has done this before with their Okemiri APUs, and Intel does this on almost every generation of CPUs with their Intel HD graphics. The only problem is, most of the time, these graphics aren't really able to handle anything intensive. They're more or less compared to a very, very low-end graphics card, and you don't really expect to do a whole lot of gaming on them. But from all of the tests that I've seen, even my own personal experience, the 2200G and even more so the 2400G are more than capable of providing a decent gaming experience for under $200 for both the CPU and the GPU. So for the last week, I've been using the 2200G, and I'm here to bring you the results from the gaming aspect of it. The games I tested include PUBG, Overwatch, Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, and Just Cause 3. So as a little bit of background as far as the system that I'm using, I pretty much plopped in the 2200G into my X370 or Asus Prime X370 motherboard after a BIOS update. Disclaimer, if you are buying the new Ryzen 22 or 2400G CPUs and you're thinking about just dropping them into any X370, B350, or A250 motherboard, please make sure you have done your BIOS update beforehand. If you're building a new system and you don't have the BIOS update, or you can't get a CPU to do the BIOS update, apparently AMD is sending out CPUs for people who have run into an issue like that. So I'll see if I can find the link to where you can contact them to get a CPU to update the BIOS on your motherboard. These will not work out of the box, I guarantee you. For the computer I'm using, we're using 16 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance RGB memory running at 3000 megahertz. The Asus Prime X370 motherboard. There's a Samsung 120 gig SSD, and there's a few hard drives in there, but those aren't really going to impact the gaming performance and the numbers I'm about to show you. One thing is that the CPU is running at the stock clock speeds, but I did overclock the GPU to 1400 megahertz on the core clock. Just because I want to see how much we can actually push the CPU slash GPU combo in order to give us playable frame rates. So without any further ado, let's get into those numbers. Now, to kick things off, we have Deus Ex Mankind Divided with the canned benchmark at 1080p on low settings with none of the eye candy turned on. With the benchmark, it gave us an average of 33, minimum of 24, and a maximum of 43. Next up, we have Overwatch. Now, we ran these settings 1920 by 1080 at medium, but the game decided to put the medium settings with a default scaling of 79%. So I went ahead and manually bumped that up to 100%, so it's running at true 1080p, and these are the numbers that we got. We got an average frame rate of 49, a maximum frame rate of 70, and a minimum of 28. Now, next up, we have Just Cause 3. This is a very open world game similar to GTA 5. With these settings cranked all the way down 1920 by 1080 at low, again with none of the eye candy on, we are getting 44 for the max, 27 for the min, and 33.75 for the average. Now, for the final game that I tested, it's everyone's favorite, and that is PUBG. Now, this is possibly the worst optimized game in the entire list, and we cranked the settings all the way down to 1080p on low, and I even cranked the scaling down to 90%, so it's not even really true 1080p. We got an average of 29.8 frames per second, a maximum of 39, and a minimum of 7. Pretty much what this means is that when it dips, it will dip, but the average is slightly playable. In my experience when playing for actual pleasure, I was able to turn the resolution down to 720p with 100% scaling and all the details at low, and I was able to get between 40 and 50 FPS on average while playing the game. So if you are willing to turn down the settings a little bit to enjoy the game at a higher frame rate, fewer stutters, definitely something you want to take a look at. So all in all, the 2200G performs way better than what I was expecting from a $100 CPU/GPU combo. According to the benchmarks, if you wanted to play anything at about 1080p at low settings, or maybe if you were even willing to throw the settings down and bump down the resolution to 16:900 or 720p, you would be able to get more than playable frame rates. So if you do want to build a computer now on the cheap, get some decent gameplay in with a cheap CPU/GPU combo, throw in 8 gigs of memory, maybe higher speed, you might be able to put together a computer for about $400 to $500 that has no GPU in it, but is able to play your favorite games at decent resolutions and decent frame rates. Anyway guys, I think that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, found it useful, hit that thumbs up button. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them down below. This has been it, and maybe we'll see some more videos from the 2200G. It might end up becoming a home theater PC, who knows. I think that's it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.